One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Words have a magical power. They can either bring the greatest happiness or the deepest despair. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. We choose not randomly each other. We meet only those who already exists in our subconscious. The only person with whom you have to compare ourselves is that you in the past, and the only person better you should be. This is who you are now. The goal of all life is death. Love and work, work and love. That's all there is. Love is a state of temporary psychosis. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Psychoanalysis is in essence a cure through love. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. In the small matters, trust the mind. In the large ones, the heart. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. Maturity is the ability to postpone gratification. Psychiatry is the art of teaching people how to stand on their own feet while reclining on couches. Without love, we fall ill. Not all men are worthy of love. There are no mistakes. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. From error to error, one discovers the entire truth. The voice of reason is small, but very persistent. Religion is a universal obsessional neurosis. It is not attention that the child is seeking, but love. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Where it was, their ego shall be. I prefer the company of animals more than the company of humans. Certainly a wild animal is cruel, but to be merciless is the privilege of civilized humans. The paranoid is never entirely mistaken. The sexual life of adult women is a dark continent for psychology. All family life is organized around the most damaged person in it. If youth knew, if age could. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. A strong egoism is a protection. Time spent with cats is never wasted. I've been a fortunate man in life. Nothing has come easily. The only shame in masturbation is the shame of not doing it well. There is a powerful force within us, an unilluminated part of the mind, separate from the conscious mind, that is constantly at work, molding our thought, feelings, and actions. If you can't do it, give up. A piece of creative writing, like a daydream, is a continuation of and a substitute for what was once the play of childhood. A father's death is the most important event, the more heartbreaking and poignant loss in a man's life. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. Everywhere I go, I find that a poet has been there before me. If you want your wife to listen to you, then talk to another woman. She will be all ears. The madman is a dreamer awake. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. Poets are masters of us ordinary men in knowledge of the mind, because they drink at streams which we have not yet made accessible to science. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. Two hallmarks of a healthy life are the abilities to love and to work. Each requires imagination. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. They can transfer knowledge from teacher to student. Words enable the orator to sway his audience and dictate its decisions. Words are capable of arousing the strongest emotions and prompting all men's actions. History is just new people making old mistakes. Anxiety in children is originally nothing other than an expression of the fact they are feeling the loss of the person they love. Loneliness and darkness have just robbed me of my valuables. The ego is not master in its own house. Crystals reveal their hidden structures only when broken. To be completely honest with oneself is the very best effort a human being can make. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. Dreams are the guardians of sleep and not its disturbers. All that matters is love and work. Were we fully to understand the reasons for other people's behavior, it would all make sense. The Irish are the one race for which psychoanalysis is of no use whatsoever, because they already live in a dream world. The dream is the liberation of the spirit from the pressure of external nature, a detachment of the soul from the fetters of matter. Dreams are constructed from the residue of yesterday. The poor ego has a still harder time of it. It has to serve three harsh masters, and it has to do its best to reconcile the claims and demands of all three. The three tyrants are the external world, the superego, and the id. The news that reaches your consciousness is incomplete and often not to be relied on. Turn your eyes inward. Look into your own depths. Learn first to know yourself. Only the real, rare, true scientific minds can endure doubt, which is attached to all our knowledge. Words and magic were in the beginning one and the same thing, and even today, words retain much of their magical power. Writers write for fame, wealth, power, and the love of women. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Men are more moral than they think, and far more immoral than they can imagine. My love is something valuable to me which I ought not to throw away without reflection. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. In mourning, it is the world which has become poor and empty. In melancholia, it is the ego itself. All giving is asking, and all asking is an asking for love. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. Religion is a system of wishful illusions, together with a disavowal of reality, such as we find nowhere else but in a state of blissful hallucinatory confusion. Religion's 11th commandment is, "Thou shalt not question." My boy, smoking is one of the greatest and cheapest enjoyments in life, and if you decide in advance not to smoke, I can only feel sorry for you. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. Desire presses ever forward unsubdued. In the depths of my heart, I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. One is very crazy when in love. Knowledge is the intellectual manipulation of carefully verified observations. Where such men love, they have no desire, and where they desire, they cannot love. Humanity is in the highest degree irrational, so that there is no prospect of influencing it by reasonable arguments. Against prejudice, one can do nothing. No one who, like me, conjures up the most evil of those half-tamed demons that inhabit the human breast and seeks to wrestle with them, can expect to come through the struggle unscathed. The pleasure of satisfying a savage instinct, undomesticated by the ego, is incomparably much more intense than the one of satisfying a tamed instinct. The reason is becoming the enemy that prevents us from a lot of possibilities of pleasure. What we call happiness, in the strictest sense, comes from the, preferably sudden, satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. I've never doubted that religious phenomena are only to be understood on the pattern of the individual neurotic symptoms familiar to us. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. Might we not say that every child at play behaves like a creative writer, in that he creates a world of his own, or rather rearranges the things of his world in a new way which pleases him? When we attempt to imagine death, we perceive ourselves as spectators. The very emphasis of the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," makes it certain that we are descended from an endlessly long chain of generations of murderers whose love of murder was in their blood, as it is perhaps also in ours. The aim of psychoanalysis is to relieve people of their neurotic unhappiness so that they can be normally unhappy. The ego represents what we call reason and sanity, in contrast to the id, which contains the passions. My way of working was different years ago. I used to wait until an idea came to me. Now I go halfway to meet it, though I don't know whether I find it any the quicker. The different religions have never overlooked the part played by the sense of guilt in civilization. What is more, they come forward with a claim to save mankind from this sense of guilt, which they call sin. Smoking is indispensable if one has nothing to kiss. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. It might be said of psychoanalysis that if you give it your little finger, it will soon have your whole hand. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. The only unnatural sexual behavior is none at all. Only a good-for-nothing is not interested in his past. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? Humor is a means of obtaining pleasure, in spite of the distressing effects that interface with it. In the last analysis, the entire field of psychology may reduce to biological electrochemistry. Instinct of love toward an object demands a mastery to obtain it, and if a person feels they can't control the object or feel threatened by it, they act negatively toward it. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem, which is capable of driving a person out of his wits. Adolescent stage in the development of the human race, from which humanity should free itself. Dog therapy turns hysterical misery to mundane unhappiness. Sexuality is the key to the problem of the psychoneuroses and of the neuroses in general. No one who disdains the key will ever be able to unlock the door. The poets and philosophers before me discovered the unconscious. What I discovered was the scientific method by which the unconscious can be studied. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint when they sometimes collide with a bit of reality against which they are dashed to pieces.